Hello, welcome to third video of this series. In previous video, I explained you how to create the new Rails project, how to use Postgres database by default, and I explained you MVC framework, and we made our first commit. So let's start again. Let's start with the terminal. Let me start. Okay, in this, I won't be coding anything, but this is much more important than that. I will be explaining the entire project structure. So let's go to our code, and here we can see this entire structure. Let's have a look at each and every one of these one by one. Let me shift it to this side. Okay, so first is our okay. So let me divide this video in two parts. One is explaining all the folders one by one, and second part will be again explaining those folders which are really important to us, and we'll ignore a lot of other folders. So yeah, let's start with this. README file, you already know, it will be the file that is visible on our GitHub. I won't be showing that, that would be too much detail, but okay, let me go to this Airbnb. Oh, sorry, username. Okay, so this is the README file. Okay, I think I'm going in much more detail. I should stop that. Rake file is basically Rails related command. We have rake related commands also, mainly about database. So this file helps in that part. Then we have gem file and gem lock. Uh, we won't be integrate. We should never interact with gem lock. Gem file is the file which contains all the gems. In Ruby on Rails, gems are basically libraries. So in JavaScript, we have libraries, and uh, in Android, we have libraries. So in Rails, we do have libraries, but we name them as gems. We'll go through this file in some time. Config the configuration of the entire project. Like currently, it's an environment. What all things are there? Those things. Ruby version, basically the version that we are using. Get ignore, you already know. Get attributes, it's fine. Vendor Vendor is basically we want to use this for libraries, but this is for libraries, this is for libraries, and Gemfile is also for libraries. I'll explain that first. Gemfile is for the libraries which are part of Rails framework, which have been created using Ruby and Rails framework. So we use those libraries, mention those libraries in Gemfile. There can be some libraries which are not part of MVC framework. So basically, they won't work very well with Rails. So for those libraries, or there can be custom libraries that we have created, we use them in our libs folder, lib folder. And then there is third type, which is libraries which are from very different vendor, which has nothing to do with Ruby on Rails. So in our case, the closest example is jQuery. So we do have JavaScript, we'll be using that. But for example, if we are using jQuery, technically we are not using that in this project. But even if we are using jQuery, we'll have to mention that in vendor. So those are the differences. Temp is basically the temporary folder, cache, and all those things, storage related, all those temporary related things which are used for development. Storage folder currently it's empty, but it will contain all the files which are uploaded by user. So for example, in our Airbnb case, when we are creating a new property, obviously the user will add a lot of images related to properties. So for all those images will go into our storage. How it will go in this, all those things we'll figure it out later. Public folder is basically similar to the public folder of React app code. Uh, Basically, all the static files like style sheets, HTML, and those kind of things, favicon icon. These are all static files here. Then we have log folder. It will keep the log of our development. So, for example, right now it's empty, but let me start it. I'm using Rails server to start our project, or we can use Rails S. Uh, let's start this, and maybe we should get that in our development. Localhost 300, there is an error, that's completely fine. But yeah, I'll go through that later on again, what we did in terminal. But the point is that whatever error or whatever things we got in terminal, we can see that entire log in here. So it's the development log here. Library I've already explained. DB, as the name suggests, it's database related. Uh, Currently, it has only seeds.rb, and if you'll see, it mentions how to create it, but we'll create our own database here. It contains all the configuration of the project. So configurations like environment related libraries, environment, sorry, configurations like in which type of environment the product is, the production, the testing environment, the dev environment, or maybe staging. Then there are various initializers, languages, controllers. Then there are other libraries that we might use using import map. It already has stimulus, that's great. Uh, then routes. So basically, if we are visiting any particular URL, routes will help us determining which particular code to call. We'll go through all these in detail. Then there is bin. Okay, so bin contains these are various scripts. We'll use these scripts to run our project. I'll show it to you when we switch to terminal and run more things in upcoming videos, not right now. An app contains these many folders. Again, this is the main folder we will be coding in. Assets contains all the style sheets like SCSS files and all, images, icons, those kind of things in assets. Channels we can ignore for now, but this we normally use if we are implementing any uh, TCP UDP might be a bit complicated terms here, but for example, if you're using a chat application, so there, whatever communication happens using sockets, we use channels for that. The code is written in this. Controllers, MVC, so C, which is controller. It came out wrong, but yeah, C is controller. All the code related to controller goes here. Helpers are just simple code that we write to supplement our controllers. We'll use this also. All the JavaScript related controllers and the code related to JavaScript goes here. Let me, okay, silent. Jobs are basically all the background jobs that we want to do. Maybe like uploading a big file can be one of the jobs, or yeah, anything which has to do with background work. Mailers is everything related to email. So, for example, if we are whenever a new user creates the account, we send an verification link on their email. So that part goes into mailers. Models, again, MVC model. Database related models are part of this. And views are our front end part. All the HTML connection with the CSS, those kind of things will go into views. So I hope it explains basic terminology about basic explanation about all the directories and files. Our focus will be on gem file, vendor temp, storage folder we won't be using, but it will get used on our project. Public, it's fine. Even if we interact with it, it's static. It doesn't. Log, we won't be using much unless and until something very big problem happens. Library, we won't be using. Log, we won't be using. Database, we will definitely be using. Config, routes, and all those things we'll be using. It's super important for us. Bin, we'll be using in terminal, but we won't be making any change to bin. And app folder we will be using, except channels, jobs, mailers we might use. I'm not fully sure yet now. We'll see that. But I don't think channels will be needed and jobs will be needed here. So that's all. I hope it explains the entire project structure. And that's it for now. I'll close my server. I hope you haven't started it because it's not required. We'll do that in next video. So this is the basic understanding of this entire project structure. That's all. Thank you. Bye bye.